Yeah, like the, what is it, Moira effect? Well, it's too late to change now. Hype. I believe so.
All right. Hello. Here we are. Welcome to what used to be called Chats with Devs. Just calling it Heart to Heart these days. I am your host, Alex Preston, and I have Emily Katske with me here as well, who is our lead animator at Heart Machine. Hi, Emily. How you doing?
Hello, I'm doing well. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you here. So we're going to do the thing that we've been doing the past couple of times we've tried this format out. Going to talk a little bit about yourself, your career, what it's like to work in your particular discipline. You know, we'll get into some examples and show some fun GIFs and things like that about animation and all those juicy details, and then we'll do a bit of Q&A at the end. And we're always trying to keep the format to a little over an hour, but we end up finding ourselves a little closer to an hour and a half. So we'll try our best to keep it concise for everybody. But for now, welcome, Emily, again. Could you tell me and us, all of us here, a little bit about your career and how you ended up getting into games?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it was a winding road. I went to Savannah College of Art and Design. I knew that I loved art, did a lot of drawing and painting in high school, but didn't really know where to channel that energy as far as like a specific career path. Went into illustration, pivoted to concept art for games. I was a lifelong gamer, knew I wanted to work in games. That could be a good route for me, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So I did concept art, and then I was like, oh no, you're going to tell me what to draw? I don't know if that's what I want to do. So I ended up deciding to go and just try out what SCAD had to offer as far as like game design courses. So I did modeling, programming, design work. And I was just like, none of this is really hitting right. And I eventually was like, wait a minute, there's something missing here. And it was animation. They did have an animation course, but it was very focused to like film. And I was like, wait, like you could put the two together. And so I ended up like tailor making my route, doing like a hybrid of both. So what I really like is that it gave me a lot of perspective on the entire process. I
Sure.
really dabbled in all of it. So I have a good idea, not good at it, but I have a good idea of what goes into other like disciplines within game development. So I did that. I in my career worked on cinematics and gameplay, player animations, AI, and I just really loved it. I loved that it was mixing the two things that I loved, animation and games.
When you
And
say AI, what did you do with AI in games?
Oh yeah. So I worked at Treyarch on Call of Duty Black Ops 4
Ah,
and specialized in like the AI, like zombies, like their movement. There were other characters called like the catalysts or dealing with enemies entering in a scene cinematically and having to transition into gameplay. Just anything that had to do with like non-player animations, really. It's very fun.
um, you joined us right before the pandemic, basically.
Yeah.
So I don't even think you had any time in the office at all to hang out with us, like whatsoever, right?
Yeah,
Um,
unfortunately.
it was all work from home. I guess
Mhm.
this is a question that we haven't really been talking about a whole lot. How has your work from home experience been?
Mhm.
how has this been compared to working in studios previously? Like, what's this transition been like for you, and what's kind of been the pros and cons of it for you?
I mean, it's a mixed bag. I will say that a lot of it is very personal. So, to start, it was very weird meeting everyone, but not really meeting everyone. I
Mm-hmm.
will say that everyone at Heart Machine is so lovely. And I know that, like, feels like I should say that because I work here and we're on a live stream, but I really mean it. Like, it made the transition quite easy. You know, we all discorded often and everyone has like very welcoming personalities. It made it a lot easier than I thought it would be. I was worried that it would be um, unnatural, but everyone was just so friendly. It felt like it was really easy to blend in, you know, as far as like personalities and everyone went. You know, you pick good people.
I'll
So
try my
that was really
best.
nice. I will say that I did not have an office for the longest time, and that made working from home very difficult. Trying to
Mm,
schedule meetings with my partner,
I
and
remember.
I know it was working in for a while. I worked in my bedroom, and I would constantly bang up against my bed frame, and I had like bruises on
That's
my knees.
that's where I'm at right now. Is the bedroom. I lost my office space at home, and so this is what
Oh,
I'm relegated to. Your office is looking quite nice there.
thank you. I've been very lucky. I got lucky finding a place that has room and is affordable. I hit the jackpot and I was able to make my office and now it's not so bad. I mean, there's still challenges still outside of where I'm sitting, you know, coordinating meetings and making sure that like, you know, there's challenges to collaborate over work from home, but
Sure.
I feel like we've handled it quite well. I really enjoy being able to screen share, and I have like a Cintiq monitor, and so I can just draw things out the same way I would with like a whiteboard in the office, which is nice. And also, selfishly, I can be in meetings I don't need to, and I can just turn this way and do my work while I listen, you know, fly on the wall,
Sneaky,
which is kind of
sneaky,
nice. Yeah,
sneaky. Um,
yeah.
well, I got a million more questions for you on your work and role and everything else. Why don't we get into some of the visual supplements,
Oh
and
yeah.
that'll help us talk a little bit more about them. Um, all right, so if you can see what's on screen here with Ray running around, slashing and dashing, I think this would be good to talk about what's happening here and what kind of work goes into what we're seeing on screen.
Well, a lot goes into it. To start, this is where Ray's attack animations were on like the prototype phase. So we were delving into combat, but hadn't quite polished it. You know, it was in game, so we could start testing and seeing it. She's not T posing, you know. But this was just the prototype phase, and so this is kind of our starting point that we had with Ray's attacks. You can see that they're a little slow, especially that second hit. The actual like hit frame happens before she does her slash. There's a handful of problems. They're not very punchy or stylish. You know, they're prototype.
Sure.
But that's really where we started with, and we knew we had a lot of challenges up ahead when it came to really like fleshing them out and giving Ray some style and substance with her combat. So
Yeah, we had had these types of animations for a good long while, like more than a year, I want to say. These like very standard sweepy swipes.
mhm.
That's the technical name for it. Sweepy swipes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Flawlessly executed. But they were never really, like you were saying, fully fleshed out or thought through is kind of just, hey, this works. And sometimes in games, that's what you're stuck with for a while, is like, does this work? Because you have to prioritize. And it communicated what we needed it to communicate. It wasn't blocking anything. We knew that we wanted to do more with it, but it was A-okay for like more than a year, or even more than that probably.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the perfect level for prototype, in my opinion. You haven't committed too much time knowing, that it's going to get massaged and changed around. Design has to futz with it, So it was perfect for what it was, but we knew that there was a lot of challenges, specific to our game especially.
It's true.
So now, yeah. No,
and then we all started watching hockey.
Yeah, we actually decided to scrap it all and we're making a hockey game.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. So when we were looking for style inspiration, we kind of went to our roots. Obviously with Ray's Locomotion, she has a lot of skating. We had a lot of influence with speed skating, anything on ice to get that fluid kind of fast locomotion. So it's really where I started with reference, but the hockey wasn't really the right call. It was a little too there wasn't a lot of fluid or flowiness to it. It was just kind of people brawling, which isn't really the vibe we were going for. So
that's a lot of hard angles and checking people and then, punch some teeth out. That's exactly what hockey is. I know everything about hockey.
Exactly. That's the sport, is just punching.
Just punching. I think they punch more in hockey than they do in boxing.
There you go. Yeah, I mean,
true fact. If anybody wants to know sports true facts,
we're the sport experts, so definitely listen to us. Yes. So this next GIF is roller derby, which was another inspiration for Ray's Locomotion kit. And I really was interested to see if that would be the route that we wanted to go. But ultimately with roller derby, a lot of it's about blocking people, not always attacking, and that's not really what we're looking for. And then you have this really interesting move at the end of this GIF. You can see the girl in red does a hip check. She tries to get in the way with her hip, wah, right there. But with our kind of game, it didn't really work so well because we don't really want to veer Ray in directions. There's a lot of platforming elements, and you don't want to get in the way of the player's control of the character in that way.
Ray don't sway.
Yeah, Ray don't sway. So it just didn't really work for us. Yeah. So we ended up saying no to roller derby, and the next GIF is actually more in line with the style that we ended up going with, which is figure skating. What we liked about it is it had a little more of that fluidity, a little bit of gracefulness, but it's really mostly just the fact that every movement is meant to flow within one another. And there's a lot of punch in this, look at that big wind up and wow, she really throws herself into the air. So it still has some punch to it, it's not all just slow, graceful movements. And if you look at how she moves leading into it and coming out of it, there's a lot of similarities with how we ended up going with our Locomotion. So this ended up being a lot of the inspiration. So what you're seeing in game now is the final combo. You have the 1 hit, the 2 hit, and then the full 3 hit. You can see that 3rd hit has that axle spin a la figure skating. So it ended up being taking a little bit from the prototype, taking a little bit from figure skating. We ended up making a little old mashup for our final product.
We did. And this is that combo in action on an enemy, which you'll see quite a bit in the game. How much of a pain was it to get this all implemented and functioning well, and then connecting the enemies in a way that made sense?
I mean, there's a lot more behind the scenes as far as the attack distance and kind of, Max Kaufman did a lot of the magic behind the scenes of making sure it all worked properly. And it was a lot of effort on the animation side. By the way, I should mention the final combos were done by our talented animator, Sean Ward. So this is not my animations. This is his, and he did a fantastic job. Right. And he had to make a lot of versions. So in this one, you can see there's an in-air version where feet are not planted on the ground. So we had to make that. this also shows a really tricky aspect. It's the concept of like the drive-by combo.
Right.
One of the most challenging parts of our game is speed, and how do you get these animations looking right and being as fast as they have to be. If you're skating past an enemy and you have to be able to do a combo, you only have like fractions of seconds that you're actually close enough to hit them and passing by them.
It's true.
So yeah, you can see that a lot of like the design, a lot of the design was based on this concept and the speed, and we just had to deal with it. So here you see there's like an idle version where we have to deal with blending back to idle instead of blending into skating. Um,
We also had to do a lot of VFX work,
oh my
on multiple fronts because that is part of completing this attack combination, and that is separate from, but also directly tied to the core character animation. So,
Absolutely.
you and Sean are working on the character stuff while our external VFX crew and other folks on the team are working on making sure that they match up and kind of really tie into these character animations. And it's that coordination can be quite the dance sometimes, right?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. And having to grapple with like what is Ray's attack? Is it a sword? Does that allow for the flexibility that we need, as she does her drive-by skating and as we deal with attacking to the left and the right? So I really like the more energy VFX stylish route that we went. I think that was
It's a yo-yo and she's on roller skates. That's it.
Yeah,
That's all it is. It's canon
that's all
now.
it is. You said it.
I've said it. It's on the internet. No take backsies. So there we go.
Okay.
Um, and this is in motion. We're kind of showing the full thing again. Oh,
Yeah,
I think
and then I also go into like the speed. We had to be able to handle like slow button presses versus fast ones. So at first you can see that there's like a long time between each hit, and then towards the end I start mashing. Something else that's interesting from an animation perspective is that because we had to hit so quickly, we didn't really have time for like a wind up. When you think of
no.
like a punch, you think of like big wind up and then the wham. So what we ended up doing is really offloading that to the end of the animation.
Mm-hmm.
So the end of the first attack is the wind up for the second, but we also have to balance making it natural if you don't play the second animation. So that was a really that was a fun challenge.
It's quite distinct in the way that we had to handle that, and like you were talking about, even early on when you weren't here, when we were experimenting with some of these things, Ray was still kind of moving while attacking. And let me tell you, moving while attacking, not the easiest thing to tackle. Especially if a character has any kind of momentum or anything like that. And with our speeds, because Ray goes pretty dang fast at points, trying to make sure that everything stays aligned, all the different hitboxes, hurt boxes, whatever else, the enemies themselves can take this momentum, and that can be fed into different systems. Again, the VFX keep up and don't read as just like static in front of you or immediately falling behind, because if you have to do some weird little visual tricks there and timing, otherwise everything just flies by Ray because she's going so fast.
Absolutely. It's much harder than it seems, and I'm sure it seems hard too. So.
Well, Emily, the animation crew and VFX crew, you all make it look very easy and elegant at the end, but it's many, 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 many hours of very detail-oriented labor to get to this kind of state where it looks so polished. So, do you want to jump into the Brute and talk about the Brute?
Oh yeah,
here we go. Hello, Brute.
The Brute, one of our many mobs.
Yeah, we have mobs in the game, meaning just more common, smaller, Ray scale-ish enemies, and then we have our big giant bosses that we've showcased and talked about a bit here and there. This is our biggest mob that we have in the game. It's also one of the weirder and grosser ones for sure. Do you want to talk about this creature?
Absolutely. So first, the animation was done by Jordan Campbell, one of our other talented animators. did a great job. Just want to shout out those cool floppy arms. Love them so much. So what I really wanted to talk about with the Brute, or one of the first things I wanted to mention, is that you all saw Max talk about, well, hopefully you saw, if you haven't, you should, Max's work on our procedural locomotion stepper system. We use it in a handful of places. And what's so cool about the Brute is that we did a hybrid of that stepper system as well as like hand key animation. So this thing that you're seeing right now is a hand key animated walk cycle. You'll notice towards the bottom, you got those little bars, and what those are notifies to tag each step so that we can sync the stepper system with the animations. And what's so neat about that is that we basically get to save on 1 million animations. The stepper system handles the bulk of the locomotion, and we feed it like a walk cycle, and it deals with turns, it deals with like starting, stopping. It just saved us so much time. And ultimately, you know, while these mobs and combat is very important to us, we have a lot of other things to showcase and work on, like the story, NPCs, the giant bosses. So it was a really economical and optimal way to approach our smaller enemies, and allowed us to really juice up everything else. So here you'll see super juicy. Look at those VFX.
It's more fizzy, more like a delicious drink.
Yeah. So here you can see in situ, you know, in real time, as the Brute will start, stop, they turn, you know, it
looks very lost.
Yeah. So something to note is that you won't really see the animations this close in game. Usually when you get this close, they're attacking you, so I'm cheating it a little bit. But you can see again, like, we only had to provide an idle, a walk, and then you'll see later on like body curls to handle turning, and the system handles everything else. It's pretty incredible. Something else?
We talked a little bit about IK with Max, and there's some IK in here, right? With like the stepper system, and IK stands for inverse kinematics. You know, how challenging is it to work with IK these days, you know, as it becomes more of a universal tool? You know, what do you find engaging about that or challenging about that, if anything?
Well, pros and cons. So the largest challenge, I'd say, is the actual implementation, which, again, I did not do myself. Max did it. And then one of our other talented engineers, Jack Seibert, helped work on these as well. But they have to deal with the bulk of like the bugs and the setup and the problems on a per character basis when they have weird double jointed limbs and 3 legs. But the challenge from an animation perspective is really like letting go. You know, normally with animation, you animate the start, you animate the stop, and that means idle to locomotion and locomotion to idle. You animate each turn, usually left, you know, 90 degrees and 180 degrees or more than that. Right, same thing. And it's really just like letting go of that, you know. As an artist, you always want like all the control and to take everything and polish it. So the IK system is really helpful for scheduling and prioritizing, but ultimately you have to let go, you know. So this next GIF is the last thing that went into that stepper system, which is body curls. So turning left, we kind of curled the body, turning right, going down slope, up slope, down slope, left, right, up slope, left, right. Again, like we put in an idle, a walk, and then these body curls, and got all of these incredible animations for free from an animation schedule. Not free for our engineers.
No, somebody's got to do the work. Speaking of free and time that goes into this stuff, I'll chime in here and say, you know, for Drifter, we were all 2D, you know, hand animated, lots of sketches, whatever else. Like, you know, we're talking about work that is definitely challenging, but when you take the leap to 3D, it's orders of magnitude more complicated. You know, as Emily, you're laying out here, not only do we have to account for the different limbs, but we also have to account for like how it's going to curl, you know, not just left and right, but up and down and any other way, shape, or form that we're going to change the shape and direction of the body itself and any reactivity to hits or attacks. And we haven't even gotten into combat stuff yet. So this is like just basic locomotion we're talking about. And already we're we're in deep here. We're just like a lot of complexity. So,
yeah,
that transition from 2D to 3D is a big one. And having folks like you on board who's been doing this for a while is a major benefit. Let's talk about the rear up.
Yeah. So this is the brute's attack. I want to first start by saying I had to change the montage because keen Unreal folks will notice that there's a section that says loop and it's not looping, but I unchecked it just so we could see the full thing. So this is the brute's attack. What I really wanted to highlight here is that telegraph, a big rear back, like you said. So there's a couple things that it was really important for. The first thing is that we obviously get them on one limb. The brute just rears back up onto that one limb. And what's nice is then we can rotate. We can kind of pivot the brute really easily. We don't have to deal with like turning, So they rear up and they can kind of aim to face you where they need to face you, and then they go into their charge. So that was really important. And then you'll see in later GIFs the importance of that height. We really not only do we get the brute on that one leg, but we really stood him up really tall. Obviously not as tall as our big bosses, but
no, this is very, very small compared to any of our bosses.
A bug in comparison, not even close.
Not even close. Yeah, this is like if you rode a tricycle backwards and then pop a wheelie on the rear single wheel.
Yeah. Exactly, the pop a wheelie. And it's really important when you're going fast to be really readable, especially at a distance and while you're turning and locomoting really quickly. So if you go to the next GIF, you'll see in actual combat.
Here we go.
So I just want to say that I have God mode turned on because these guys are hard and I only had 1 health. So here they are in situ. You see the importance of really being able to see that rear back. It's really visible, really big. There's other things that contribute, like the cool VFX and UI, but it's really important to just be able to tell what's going on as you're locomoting all over the place, going real fast, spinning in circles.
It's true. Let's go to the next one. Now you can see all sorts of stuff happening at once. Yeah, our little flatheads. We got our big giant brutes. Everything's trying to kill you all the time. Ray never gets a break. She's just sick and tired of this bullshit. Wants out of here.
So my hope is to show a couple things. First of all, I'm sure that the single brute looked nice and easy by itself, but obviously you see that compounds really quickly when you have a lot of stuff to juggle. I get hit a few times. Again, I have God mode on, so I can get away with that in this GIF, but you guys will not be able to do that. And I also wanted to highlight, again, how important the telegraph is, both for, the VFX UI as well as the animation. When there's so much chaos going on, you have to be able to, tell what's happening, So that was some of our goals. You see hit reacts, see our little flatheads. Anyway.
Let's go to the next one. That's it for this one, right?
Yeah, that's it for the brute.
Goodbye, brute.
Goodbye, brute.
Goodbye, brute. See you never. Let's talk about... we got flow charts here.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get into some flow charts. Here, let's put that over here. All right, let's talk about this fun little flow chart.
Yes. So this flow chart is for one of our NPCs. I wanted to talk about our NPC animation because it's a lot of work. So for this particular NPC, we had to plan out their animations before the script was locked. So there are some challenges with that. But what was nice is we knew the general tone of the character was not going to change. Their personality was pretty set. And the script, while not locked, was pretty close. It had the general beats and ideas. And so what I wanted to do, because we couldn't do bespoke animations to a locked script, I wanted to kind of find the general beats, find the general personality, the common themes and emotions, and go from there. So this is the flow chart. We ended up with 5 main idols, and you could see each color arrow is a transition to and from. Because we didn't have the locked script, I wanted it to be as flexible as possible and really hone in on like we can do whatever we want. I wanted writing and narrative to feel empowered to do what was best for the script and not have to stress about the animations. So we got as much coverage as we could without having that locked script. So here's the character.
That's Sid.
It's Sid.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
It's Sid. So Sid, I think we've talked about this a little bit with like Preston and other folks, so we can talk about it in a little more freeform here. But she's kind of your like kind aunt, but she acts as your guide through the game. She's in a variety of, she's on all the different biomes, giving you some backstory and some guidance and some wise old words. She's a universal, AI, holographic AI that you encounter throughout. She has some great VO going, and more specifically here, she has some great animation going. Emily, I know this is one of your favoriteest characters, so.
That's what I was gonna say. Sid's
Yeah.
my favorite. I love Sid so much. Hence why I chose, or one of the reasons why I chose to talk about her during this live stream. So here are some images of the animations that we chose in the flowchart. You've got your idle, a pause, you have like a laugh pose, a think pose, and then a cute little head tilt. So there's just the lineup. Here we have some in motion, the typing.
This is her idol, basically. Whenever you encounter Sid, she's working hard.
Mm-hmm.
Always busy.
Shout out those cute little VFX for the typing. Love that. The diamonds, really cute. Got the think. One of the fun things about Sid is that her left arm is really like 2.5 like mechanical, limbs, and so that was really fun to play with, all the arms. So yeah, this is a think. I don't want to go too in depth on each idol as far as like talking about it, because I don't want to go into story spoilers, but you have the pause, which is like, you go from typing and more dedicated, like looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some face shapes. What I liked, or what I wanted to do with the myriad of idols and eye shapes is try and go for like a mix and match approach to her animation set. So you could have any idol with any face pose, and what we wanted to do is try and be very strategic about the poses we chose so that they could handle that flexibility and really like min-max her emotions. So like, I think in the next GIF, you'll see an example of that, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Let's bring it up.
Yeah. So the goal is really to just not waste any potential. So here you have the head tilt with default eyes. Feels very like curious, maybe confused, very like, just kind of looking at you with that straight face. Can we pivot back to the other GIF real quick?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so default eyes, you have a more like blank, maybe confused, maybe just curious expression. But you'll notice that when I change the eye shape to something sad, it immediately feels more concerned, more endearing, more, like you mentioned, like an aunt.
I am endeared. I am currently.
Yeah, she's so cute. So there's that, and then I put on a happy face, and oh my gosh, she's doing a cute little like happy affection, head tilt. So the one animation gets a lot of bang for your buck with all these different face poses layered on top. So we were really like strategic about our poses to try and have potential.
Yeah, it's part of what we have to be careful with is scope always, and sometimes we are good about that, and other times we're not as good about it. But I think with characters and expressivity, we made it work. You guys did a great job on that front. Really focusing on just a couple of key elements with the eyes, because eyes are so expressive and they're the windows to the soul. But humans really pay attention to eyes more than anything else on the face most of the time, unless somebody has something drawn on their face or whatever, has like a fake nose and mustache, kind of mustachioed disguise. But with our characters here, it's like, well, we knew that most, if not all, of our characters had masks, first of all. So any kind of lip sync wouldn't make any sense anyway. And we didn't plan, like when I was doing the initial character concepts way back when, in the early days, 5 years ago, whenever it was. Again, I wasn't planning for any kind of VO anyway. VO was a late addition to the process. So fortunately, we were able to make it work in that, well, they have masks, so it doesn't matter, or if they don't have a mask, like in the case of Echo, she just doesn't have a mouth anyway. So no lip syncing or any more complicated rigging of the face. We really just focused on those bigger silhouette changes and the eyeballs.
Yeah, it saves so much time to not have to worry about lip sync. So
Yeah.
love that. Selfishly, from a production standpoint, love that.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of no lip syncing. Okay.
So I think we have one more GIF.
We do.
For,
we do have one more.
Sid. Yeah. Okay. So this is Sid going to her laugh animation. And what I really wanted to highlight with this is the importance of the transition animations. Oftentimes, I think that transition animations make them sound less important or like just a pass through, like don't worry about it. It's really just getting from point A to point B. But in this example, Sid's actual laugh is happening in the transition, and then she holds it for the idle. We didn't really want to go the route where she just laughs on loop. It felt a little awkward, a little weird. So what I liked about this is that it just shows that you can put a lot of personality and a lot of character into those transition animations. And I think we had something like 15 or 16 of them to make the Matrix go from one to the other. And it was a lot, but it's worth it, especially in the case of the laugh.
And it's also very simple, and like there's a lot to it, but simplicity of these types of animations, like it gets a lot out of a little. It's a couple of drops of gas go 100 miles. I don't know. I don't have a good metaphor. I don't have a good sports metaphor. You can get across the touchdown with only 2 steps. I don't know, something.
Yeah, that sounds right.
That's perfect.
I'm very good at sports.
Get that field goal, Sid. Pump that kickball. Something. Don't sprain your ankle. Yeah. Okay. So Emily, we've reached the end of our kind of GIF suite that we have here. I think it would be good to maybe talk with you a little bit more about some Q&A between you and I, and then open it up to questions from everyone else that's on the stream that's asking things. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about, you're our lead animator. What does that mean? And what's the difference between that and like a senior animator or just, animator as a title? And knowing that it's different from place to place, but what has it meant for you here at Heart Machine so far?
Well, in a lot of ways, it means a little bit less animation, which is sometimes a hard pill for people to swallow, which totally fair. You're an artist. Some people don't really want to let go of that, and that's totally fine. In my case, I like that I get to do a little bit of everything that I love. I still do animate, don't get me wrong, still animate, but I deal a lot more with scheduling and scope and just really trying to min-max my team's talents, trying to make sure everyone's working on something that excites them. If they're not excited, why aren't they excited? Is there something better that they could do? Or maybe they need more information and they're kind of stuck. I don't know. I really like the people side. I like the planning side. I found that in other jobs, I was really organized, doing a lot of that kind of work anyway, of scheduling and managing my own tasks. So it was a really natural progression for me in my career. And I feel like as lead, especially here, like I said, it's really just min-maxing my team. We have so many talented animators. It's just aiming them at what they will excel at and what makes them happy, and just letting them kind of not go wild, but kind of go wild, Such talent. It's yeah.
What about your experience here, and then even before this at Treyarch and whatever else, what advice would you have for others trying to get into the industry and, maybe become animators themselves, whether they want to be more lead or directorial, or if they want to become, just boots on the ground animating something all the time?
Well, I would say to compare yourself to demo reels that you see online. I know that might sound harsh and difficult, but ultimately that's who you are competing for jobs with. A lot of the times I'll see students who are just comparing themselves to other students. And be fair, you're not comparing yourself to the senior animator, because if you're like a junior, if you're trying to break into the industry, you're probably not actually competing with those jobs. So, don't be too hard on yourself, but also make sure that you're looking at more than just your immediate surroundings. I also say just keep at it. A lot of getting a job is timing and luck. So for example, my first job, I got very lucky, very lucky. I had friends who had gotten a job. It was it was a WWE game. The lead was looking for more grunt work, and my name got recommended, and I just got really lucky. And it was partially like making connections, and they were my friends regardless of career and connections. But it was important to do that, because our industry is quite small, and people with contract jobs bump around a lot, and so it's about making friends and helping each other, and a lot of luck. Hiring is a lot of the times it happens all at once at like one time of the year, or you apply to a job and get really close, but they just happen to have someone return, and it's easier to onboard someone returning than someone new. So just stay strong, keep at it. And then for leadership, I'd say just know that it's what you want to go into. Because if you are there's a little bit of letting go of your craft that has to happen. I know that I'm not going to animate as much as someone who's a senior animator or principal animator. And I'm not letting go of it entirely. It's important to stay connected to your craft and still do it.
Right.
But
you can't be a good lead without actually still practicing.
Absolutely. You're going to get out of touch with what's what's the current knowledge. You're going to lose touch with your pipeline and process. So you definitely should still animate for sure, for many reasons, and just to keep yourself in tip-top shape. But just know that that's going to happen. I think one of the most common things are people becoming leads and going, "Oh, I really miss animating. I hate this." So, just know that it's the route you want to go, and stay organized and stay empathetic. That's also very important.
I think that's great advice. Shall we get into some other questions from folks outside of you and I? All right, so there's a couple here. After the game is released, will you be playing the game? Is that Wolf? Are you going to play our game afterwards, or are you're done with it once we're shipped?
Absolutely. My partner and I, we whenever he's also a game developer, and whenever a game comes out, we play it for each other. And it has to be the person working on it, because I feel like, if I were to watch him play, I'd be like, I can do it faster. Just give it to me. And he can still play on his own time, but I'll do the first run. So, but also very good. Our game is hard. So.
It can be pretty hard. I will probably I'll be playing to check for bugs, but not for a lot of other reasons. Michael Taylor asks, Emily, did you animate HLD?
I did not. I came in partway on Solar. Shout out to Sean Ward for being an incredible 2D animator and 3D. That's crazy. You can do anything. That's nuts.
Yeah, Sean was our main animator for Drifter, and he's been with us since then. And he continues to be an amazing talent. All right, let's see. Nathaniel Winkler asks, how did you go about creating a variety of attacks and locomotion anims? Lots of individual animations, blend spaces, etc. It seems like we had some coverage here, but maybe there's a good summation of this that you could provide, Emily?
Full body. There was an idle variant of the 3-hit combo, an air variant, and a skating variant. So I think that's that. It was just full body, all 3 of those, and different exits, and a lot of ABP love.
Lemon Worm asks, was Shadow the Hedgehog hover shoes an inspiration at all? I'm afraid that Shadow the Hedgehog never entered into our conversations. Maybe Sonic the Hedgehog was spoken of because you got to go fast, and there's a lot of blue in our game. But I'm sorry to disappoint. There was no Shadow. All right, Milk Shop Up. I think that Milk Shop Hop. What made you move away from an 8-bit look to showcase the fluidity more? Well, pixel art is its own thing, and for me, for Heart Machine, I think it was a good time, as good a time as any, to move away from 2D, move away from pixel art. There are certain limitations and constraints with that type of canvas that's fantastic and really allowed us to do some cool stuff with it. But I wanted to better encapsulate the player in a world that we've built out. So 3D allows us to do that, to build something much more fantastical and much more real and much more dynamic in a lot of ways. There's just so many different opportunities in 3D that 2D doesn't provide. And if you're going 3D, there are definitely aesthetics and like vibes you can go for of like PS1/N64 era stuff where it's pretty low res still. The resolutions of games like that weren't much different than the resolution of 2D games from the NES age. They were all kind of in like the 200 or 400 pixel wide canvas space. And you really start to notice that even on PlayStation with all the big old jaggies. But once you started to get into PS2 era and the resolution started to get bumped a little to like almost, the 640 range, but maybe like 512-ish, and you had something called anti-aliasing, then you didn't really notice anymore that the canvas hadn't changed much. So yeah, I mean, that's a long-winded answer of 3D's cool and affords a lot of really amazing opportunities. So that's why we made the jump. Bean the Bread, that is a name. Were there any animations, Hooray, that had to get cut out or change? Oh, so many.
All of them?
So many.
All of them.
All of them got cut. Ray doesn't actually get animated.
Just T-poses very powerfully.
Hey, that's a game.
I mean, no, they weren't all cut, but most of them did change. So I came in part of the way of the process, so take all this with a grain of salt. But there were a lot that had to change or got reused in ways that we didn't expect. So for example, we had a lot done early on. There was a lot of coverage, a lot of general coverage, and things got whittled down and then got reintroduced. As we added new features, as we fleshed out the story and the bosses. So we actually did use a lot of what we made, but a lot of it we tried to be as economical as possible. Reuse when we can.
It's true. All right. Vsauce Puppet, or is it Vsauce Puppet, asks, what are the difficulty options for the game? Standard was one of the options. Does it mean it's similar to HLD's difficulty? We have a variety of difficulty options. We are tuning those until the last moment possible. It just means we want to provide an experience for as broad an audience as possible. And so because our game is a challenge, we're asking a lot of the players to say like, hey, can you like use the sticks at the same time, control your camera, look up at this giant beast over here, dash and boost and jump and do all these different actions and motions, and pay attention to a timer and pay attention to XYZ. So, for some people that's easy peasy. Chicken breezy, whatever the saying is. That's it. I nailed it. It's whatever. It's a whatever moment for them. They play Call of Duty all the time. They're twin sticking it all the live long doo-dah day in their sleep. They've got a controller that they grip in their hands each night. They use it as their mouth guard. That's how in tune they are with it. because they just want to constantly be twin sticking it. But other people are on the other end of the spectrum and they don't have that skill set yet. It's a lot harder for people to do a lot of these things at the same time. It's a lot to ask of any player to just like look at this giant thing while moving quickly, while avoiding these things, while using the camera, while remembering what buttons do what. And so we've found over time, over the course of years of development, that there is no one size fits all for a game like this. You know, you kind of need to allow some tuning for folks, or at least some very clear options for people of different skill levels, because it's not the same as, you know, a Street Fighter or something like that, where it's like, oh, the AI is just improved or smarter about this or won't stand around as much. It's like, no, we have a variety of things we're asking the player, and the one thing that we can give them universally is more or less time. And so that's kind of the key for how we tune things on the difficulty side. If the other part of the question was if it's a really hard game like Drifter, it can be. We definitely have some hard modes, so get ready for that if you're into it. Lemon Worm, how did you go about rigging the facial expressions like yes and stuff?
That's a good question. So we actually didn't really have like yes and stuff. What we did do is our talented character artist, Jack Covell, made different blend shapes for the face, and we animate those. We usually use them either in an anim curve in the animation asset or triggering them in our narrative pipeline.
Yep. All right. Mads Jacob asks, what is the most obscure inspiration for the game you can think of? Ooh, I mean, that's pretty obscure. We have the obvious ones that we've talked about here and there. Obscurity. I don't know. We've probably talked about some like Ingmar Bergman film or something at some point for some reason, as some point of inspiration or whatever. What else?
Oh man,
that's a tough one. That is
tough
definitely
one.
That's definitely a tough one. Maybe some song somewhere. You know what? When we have ridiculous conversations, there definitely comes inspiration when we're talking about like bad bands, like, you know, 311 or whatever else, where you're inspired by the success of these bands and maybe what they brought you at a younger age, you know, that nostalgia for the olden days and how that felt. So I guess that's inspiring in some way.
He said,
would you say that you felt a bit of pressure after Hyperlight, or were you very comfortable starting the next project? Oh, I was ready to go. I was good. You know, started plotting out solar stuff before we even launched Drifter. You know, I was ready to move on, and also knew that I needed to set stuff up for the team to make sure that we had things to do next time around and we weren't twiddling our thumbs. You know, of course, we had a bit of a break in between, but that's true for running a studio in general, is always knowing what's coming next. You know, there's a responsibility for everybody that works on the team, including myself, that we need to make sure that we're as prepared as possible as far as in the future as possible. So that includes not being shooken or shaken by any kind of pressure on whether a game does well or not, and focus on getting it done, getting it out the door, and prepping for what's next as well in advance as you can.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're doing.
Absolutely.
All right. For being a concept artist, would sketching on paper and scanning a piece and adjusting in Photoshop be a viable option? Emily.
Oh, me.
Yeah, you art it up.
I do art sometimes.
You are art.
I mean, I find that as an animator, I do actually draw on paper often, especially when I didn't have a Cintiq monitor. A lot of the times I will do it though to like communicate an idea rather than as like a final product. I think that it depends on the studio, it depends on the style, it depends on the art director. So, you know, anything is possible. I do think that digital tends to be the norm, but I'm also not a concept artist, so.
I would say, whatever you want to do to start, whatever inspires you and gets you working, that's great. If eventually you will probably need to transition to concepting digitally instead of just on paper and scanning, but I don't, maybe you carve out your niche and it works for you. But the main thing for me that I think is a good thing to keep in mind is like if it's inspiring to you and keeps you working and evolving your portfolio and everything else beyond, then good on you and do what you got to do. Joachim says, the last year and a half changed the way you think about your job, or maybe even even change the way you approach your job?
That's a good question. I will say from an animation perspective, I do end up having a lot more Discord meetings and a lot more Discording for notes. I find it's easier when I can like turn on video and act things out. As an animator, it's a lot of movement-based things, a lot of posing. So I find I'm much quicker to be like, let's just go in Discord. Yeah. At first, I felt a little bad about it, like, oh, it's kind of intrusive. They have to stop what they're doing. But it's no different than if you're in person and going up beside someone's desk. So I got a little bit more comfortable with that personally.
Yeah, Emily's always going up to people and interrupting them mid work, just like, hey, let's talk about this.
Discord.
Hey, let's get on Discord. It's a weird thing. This whole pandemic, it's an awful thing. It's horrible for the world, for individuals. There's been a lot of suffering and pain. Up front, we've been extremely fortunate to be able to continue doing the work that we do in the industry that we have. We have our problems and hardships and whatever else in the transition, which certainly I can get into in a moment, but I just want to make sure it's said clearly up front. Like, even with our issues, like, we are still extraordinarily fortunate that we can transition to home largely and not unscathed, but we can do the work that we need to and still get a game out the door. A lot of people have had much less fortunate transitions or have lost an entire industry, for a good chunk of time. So, again, we're lucky we can work from home. We're lucky we can be safe. We're lucky we got, internet stuff and boxes that we can just plug into and go. All that being said, it is a big change. For me personally, I'm very much an in-person type of collaborator, type of director, type of whatever. Trying to schedule every single conversation on a video chat gets really tiring. I miss people. I miss seeing people in person. I miss being able to talk to people in person. There's that kind of unspoken element, or just like little sequences of events that can happen in person when you're just sitting next to somebody, or you're walking by a screen, or somebody else is having a meeting over there that you need to just pull them aside. Or, my favorite thing is the whiteboard, just being able to stand in front of that and draw. And it's a very poor substitute to like open Photoshop and draw some things. Like, it does the job, but it does it in a very uninspiring way, where all the things in person, there's physicality to it, and you can have body language, and you can express all these things more clearly, more immediately in person. So there's that loss of subtlety and that loss of the kind of nuanced elements of engagement with people that you lose on video chat, on work from home status. So for me personally, I'm very excited to get back to the studio whenever it may be safe, and we don't know yet. So but here we are. We're still safe. We're still fortunate. All right. Foxfire 720. With the massive boss characters, is there anything tricky about animating something at that scale? Like everything?
Also, don't forget that you're on top of them at the same time. Everything. We ended up not doing a lot of hand animation on the bosses. We utilized Max Kaufman's incredible procedural animation system to help us out quite a bit. There was a lot of collaboration with that between, the engineering artists to get like the right the right vibes, the right feeling, the right weight and motion. But ultimately, not that hard from my perspective because I didn't do it. Again,
Yeah,
they're free. The work is somewhere else.
there was a lot of engineering, heavy lifting to get them to function, to move, to react, to animate in the way that they do. That wasn't on Emily or Sean to animate those giant creatures. And like you said, Emily, not only are they massive, but like you have to traverse on them. So combining all those elements for these bosses was a true nightmare in many ways. I mean, worth it in the end, but wow, what a thing to do. What a thing to do. Is that you, Troop? Troop asks, what other skills outside of art and animation do you think help you be a better animation lead? Either other disciplines within games or things outside of games entirely.
It's a good question. I kind of touched upon this before, but I think being good with people and being organized is very, very important. A lot of the times being a lead it's a whirlwind happening around you of features that have to get done like yesterday and collaborating with other departments. And so being able to stay organized is really important because otherwise you're just going to lose the thread on things.
Emily is a extraordinarily organized person.
Thank you. I try. It takes effort and a lot of practice and just getting into the habit of it. But yeah, that's very important. And then people, I think it's important to remember that, you're there to help your team. They're not here to help you. So it's really important to make sure that your team is motivated. They know what they're doing. They don't feel lost. They feel inspired that this is also in line with their career growth and their career goals. So staying really in touch with your team is really important and making sure you have a beat on like what their mood is, are they motivated, are they feeling frustrated and burnt out, and just encouraging just good practices for your team. So that's really important as well. And then the last thing I'd say is as an animator, I would recommend getting a hobby outside of art and games, preferably something physical in any kind of way, because it gives you some real world experience in what you're doing, whether it's weightlifting or running or, when I was young, I did dance and color guard. It gave me a feel for like animation principles outside of that. So like for dance, having to deal with balance and flow between movements is really important. And then also being able to get like sharp and tense when you need to. It gave me somewhere to kind of come back to whenever I was feeling lost in an animation, and it gave me it empowered me to feel confident in my acting choices and reference material. So I would recommend that.
I, for example, was a professional speed eater, so that was a key part of my development. I think that's very good advice, though, to make sure that you do things outside of your own discipline, especially when it comes to art or anything really. But when you're talking about animation and how things move, for sure, it's a really great point. Okay, I'm gonna choose like one or two others, and then we're gonna skedaddle out of here. And this time I'll remember to count it down, I think. Okay. Let's see. What was the decision process like when choosing Unreal over other engines? For me, in the early days, went with Unreal because the people that I was starting to work with were familiar with it, because it has a lot of really good documentation, because it was open source, is open source. Unity's great for a lot of reasons, but I learned from Game Maker days when we were doing Drifter and that having source is really, really important for us, because we know we're going to want to change things at the engine level. It's not just going to be layered on top of the black box that they give us. And so there are plenty of other less important reasons about why to jump into Unreal, but for me that was kind of the crux, was do we get source? And Unreal is a yes, and Unity is a probably not 99% of the time, so it made it a much easier decision ultimately. All right. Wingmat asks, are there going to be challenges like the 700 dash cape in HLD for these that are big fans of mastering game controls and bashing their head against the wall? I mean, if you're a masochist like that, that's fine. You know, I think our game will be plenty hard, and our challenging mode will be truly challenging, and getting platinum trophy and all that should be pretty good. So, I don't know if there will be a 700 or 800 dash cave challenge like in Drifter, that level of repetition, but there will certainly be things to kind of bash your head against if that's what you desire, Wing Matt. All right. I think as far as questions go, those are kind of we should seal it up. We're getting a little past 4 here. We've done our best to answer the broadest range of questions. Emily, is there anything else that you want to say, speak to, or recommend, or advise, or share before we peace out here?
I guess I hope you like our game. We worked very hard on it. A lot of love went into it, so I just hope you enjoy.
Do you have anything where people can follow you on the Twitters or the Instagrams or anything like that?
I do. I have a Twitter. It is, I think, Emily_X_Juliet. Made it in high school, and now I'm stuck with it. So
Nice.
follow me there.
If you want to follow my AIM handle, it's Magic Macaroni. You can go for it. It's you can follow me at Heart Machine Z. I think we should probably have those tags up during this whole thing next time around. But we're learning here. Episode 3, we're learning, living and learning live. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us for today's stream. We'll see you back here soon. We'll make announcements when the next one's gonna come up. We're trying to ship a game, so it might not be as regular as we hope, but maybe in the next week or two we'll see. But I'll count it down and I'll cut the stream after that.